Despite being the shortest month of the calendar year, February was packed with good wrestling front to back. Most of the promotions who had a hot start continued them, while others made some noise with their first major shows of the year. I made sure to personally broaden my horizons a bit, incorporating All Japan and Impact into the rotation by the month's end. This month will be remembered for a couple of massive matches, a retirement, and a particular debut, all occurring within the major companies, most of which made it into this video, which is a part of a series where I document my favorite matches throughout every month of the calendar year. Some terms and conditions to cover quickly if you haven't seen the last video. First, it's obvious I will not have seen every wrestling match to take place. Time and money are finite things, and I have some major blind spots compared to other channels, blogs, or podcasts. Mainly Dragon Gate, Lucha, and a lot of indie wrestling. The great thing is, if there's something I haven't seen that you have, I'd love to hear your recommendations in the comments so I could add them to a separate watch list. If I receive enough of these throughout the project, it could make for a separate video down the line. Second, favorite and best are different things, and my favorite matches may differ from, say, something critically acclaimed by Wrestling Observer newsletter. This isn't a top 10s or a hidden gems type thing either. My selection of matches is simply based off of enjoyment rather than star ratings, cage match ratings, TV ratings, etc. And last but not least, a spoiler warning for match finishes. By the numbers, I watched 199 matches spanning 10 promotions. Here are a few of my favorites from February of 2023. Choosing violence to start this month with the TNT Championship match between Darby Allin and a returning Samoa Joe. This is the conclusion to their excellent trilogy on AEW television and is contended under no holds barred. Given who's involved, you knew they'd go crazy, and they did just that. Darby enters the match in a hoodie adorned in thumbtacks to set the tone, torpedoing into Joe right away. What ensues is a 16-minute violent spectacle filled with all the wild Darby spots you'd expect, making Joe look like an absolute killer in the process. It goes without saying that this is an incredibly brutal match, but there's still a lot of thought put into this one. I really like the attention to detail of Joe using his towel to shield himself from Darby's tack jacket to throw a lariat, or taking advantage of the time Darby takes to remove the ring mats to clean off the powder and blood in his face. This gives Joe the proper opening to take back control and deal an insane muscle buster onto the exposed ring boards to secure the win. I do also appreciate an actually good usage of the picture-in-picture break to transition the match from Darby's bump on the concrete stairs to getting the match back into the ring. If there's one thing AEW has done well from a booking perspective as of late, it's that they've done a great job of making the TNT title feel important again, and present Samoa Joe in a way that he should have been from the very beginning. All hail the king of television. I didn't have much to say about STARDOM in the January video, since they started off the year primarily with house shows and the Triangle Derby tournament. February brought about their first major show with their 12th anniversary event in Osaka. This is where I pulled the favorite does not equal best card, as the best match from the show was Mirai vs Chihiro Hashimoto. Their match was fantastic, especially from a mechanical point of view, though the Goddess of Stardom title match that followed up ended up being my personal favorite. On paper, it's two physically imposing teams set to have a hoss fight, though early in the match, Himeka lands awkwardly after landing a flying knee off the apron, and the dynamic of the match changes immediately. Himeka is still the legal competitor despite the injury, and Nanai gets to work right away on the knee. This leaves Maika to step in and hold her own while short-handed. It's a story as old as time in professional wrestling, and it's done so effectively here. I got just as wrapped up into it as the crowd did, as Maika put in an absolute shift to try to stave off the champions. Himeka eventually finds herself back in the match, fighting through more targeted submissions to the knee, but eventually succumbs to all the damage sustained. Everyone in this match plays their role to a T, and while the story of the match primarily focuses on Maihime, 7-Up did more than their share as the monstrous obstacle to overcome. I am more impressed with Nanai and Yu every time I see them tag together. This is a match that tells a simple story with incredibly paced action and a lot of great combination offense. Himeka would shortly announce her impending retirement, and if this is the last time Maihime competes in a title match, it's a hell of a way to go out. I went back and forth on leaving this as an honorable mention since I talked about Danielson and Bandito last month. I wanted to avoid double dipping and repeats, but Bryan Danielson is so good that it warrants it here. This is the brutal conclusion to Danielson's stellar gauntlet of TV matches. I'm indifferent on the whole countout angle to begin, but once Danielson hits the ring, Rush begins the match like a man possessed. He's a great pick for the hired gun role, a ruthless villain not here to mess around. Drawing blood so early into the match, including some on the camera lens, puts Danielson in a position to fight back from underneath, resulting in a 15-minute sprint filled with all the stiff striking and sick bumps you can ask for. And my god, do they absolutely lay in here. No bells and whistles and not a single punch pulled. Danielson makes the most in a brawling scenario with his selling, whereas somebody else might just use this to do the routine strong style spots. Again, an end cap to a truly great run of television matches for Bryan Danielson, who sets himself up for an early Wrestler of the Year case for those who participate in that discussion. They had me until the second ref bump. I want to discuss this match in a vacuum though, and try my best to avoid Mania plans as much as possible. Let's start from the beginning. You have the hottest WWE match probably since Money in the Bank 2011 in front of an absolutely nuclear crowd. You get there using old territory booking of the world champion versus the local babyface challenger. The challenger also happens to be an all-timer in a babyface role. They do the best possible thing at the opening bell and let the atmosphere breathe for a few minutes. The crowd lives and dies with everything Sami does. There's even a pop for a side headlock. This kind of organic crowd investment gives Roman Reigns a lot more to play off of in his heat segments. I'm usually indifferent to his mid-match monologues, but they are much more effective in this hostile environment, especially when taunting Sami's family at ringside. The midpoint of the match is my favorite section. The two trade momentum and big moves, and it feels like it's on a knife's edge the entire time. Sami is so good at making you take the ride, while Roman has one of the better late kickouts in all of wrestling. I was hooked, and I believed in Sami Zayn despite the result being a foregone conclusion. It was so refreshing to be emotionally invested in a WWE main event like this. Where things get messy is with the second ref bump. I understand wanting to hit as many story beats as possible at the peak of your hottest angle, but with both Uso run-ins and the post-match Kevin Owens save, it felt like they had every idea out on the table but didn't fully commit to any of them. There wasn't a payoff, where I felt this is where you had to have one. Sure, the goal was to get there eventually, but with how the end unfolded on this night, I didn't feel any emotion. I felt indifference, and that's not a good thing. A lot of the discourse surrounding the match was involving the outcome, and I'm not necessarily here to argue that. There's tons of videos that do that already. I would rather feel sad that Sami lost rather than indifferent due to an overbooked ending. Alternatively, I'd rather feel happy that Sami and Kevin Owens reunite in their home province to go off the air, but instead they leave that thread hanging for the Mania build. We're just left with Sami in the ring without any of it. And maybe that was the sense of tragedy they were trying to convey, but to me it just felt flat. We're left with Sami Zayn in the ring, still being celebrated. But despite all my criticisms, the reason why I'm discussing this match in the first place is because it's a very good match, a great match even. It's an anomaly of modern WWE, though it could have been something truly transcendent had they stuck the landing. This makes the Tokyo debut seem like a distant memory. A few hours after Elimination Chamber went off the air, Mercedes Mone, or Mone, made her New Japan Pro Wrestling debut on US soil. I had high hopes for this match, but I didn't really know what it would look like until it was actually in the ring. Mercedes enters the match with a tribute to the late great Hana Kimura with her entrance and ring attire, and as those pieces come off throughout the match, we see something familiar but refreshed. This is not just Sasha Banks in a new coat of paint. It's someone who actually cares about Joshi and wants to exist in this space. I'm sure that was the intent, and I think the point came across very well. The work itself varies in styles and is mostly consistent throughout. Mercedes showcased some new moves in her arsenal through her training in Mexico and matched KAIRI from a technical standpoint. It's a bit on the methodical side, but Mercedes is fully acclimated by the climax of the match, even taking a wild table bump by the stage. Her finisher looked much better here too compared to the Tokyo Dome. This match was always going to be about Mercedes, but KAIRI deserves praise for her performance here too, being the ideal opponent to bridge the gap between the WWE and Japanese styles while maximizing Mercedes' strength. It's filled with all the hard strikes and emotion you'd expect from her. A successful comeback for the now CEO, who will make her first championship defense in Japan, and it's all but certain that it will be Azumi in April. Time will tell how things will look in that setting compared to here against someone familiar with her background, but I will say that I love this first match, and it's really encouraging to see. Despite Okada's boycott attempts, they actually went through with the match. 3 years in the making, on the biggest stage of the Tokyo Dome. It was so cool to see this kind of inter-promotional clash happen in real time, as it hasn't happened in Japan for quite a while. This took place at Keiji Muto's retirement show, which was a great celebration for Japanese wrestling, and surreal to see so many promotions working together under the same roof. Many of these wrestlers wouldn't normally have the chance to work at the Tokyo Dome, so it was really great to see. What I appreciate about this match though is how focused it is. It's certainly your modern dome epic, with its wild bumps and near falls, just a little more deliberately mapped out. There's very little excess here. This match is wonderfully paced and it tells the story it wants to without a bunch of preliminary work that wouldn't matter by the end. Every step of this match is taken with intense purpose. The best version of Okada is when he's at his most cynical and petty, and he does a fantastic job of conveying his disgust with every strike. Kaito leaves everything out there, best utilizing his modified Shining Wizard to target Okada's arm in order to neutralize the Rainmaker, but it's to no avail. Okada ends the match as disrespectfully as he can, pulling Kaito up at a 2 count before hitting him with the Inoki Misawa Greatest Hits collection and one final Rainmaker for the win. On the night, Kaito couldn't surpass the Rainmaker, but he did prove that he is a threat and deserves that recognition. I really hope this is just the first chapter in a generational feud, because I'll gladly stay up till 5 AM again to watch the rematch. Impact is admittedly one of my blind spots, but they put this one up for free on their YouTube page, and I really like everyone involved. Promotions tend to run the risk of the can they coexist trope by having future opponents team up, but I think the story here is more so two singles competitors struggling to put away a tag team with almost 20 years of experience under their belts. There is some miscommunication with the finish to lead into the pay-per-view match between Gresham and Bayley, but they do a good job of avoiding the pitfall throughout. I haven't watched Jonathan Gresham wrestle in quite a while, and this reminded me of how great he can be. Him and Bayley made for some very creative offense that meshed well with the classic high-speed, technical hybrid offense of the Machine Guns. Alex Shelley also puts in a fantastic selling performance of his knee, which adds a great deal of tension to the finishing stretch. This is 12 minutes of breathless action blending all the technical prowess, hard-hitting striking, and high-flying you could ask for. For a TV match, especially an opener, this ticks every box for me, and if nothing else, it's just a ton of fun. If you enjoy fast-paced wrestling, I cannot recommend this one enough. I also like both teams' respective matches at No Surrender, despite this audible creaking sound getting picked up by the ringside mics. Gresham vs. Speedball is also available for free on their YouTube page. And before I go, I'll fire off some matches that I didn't mention in any of the other entries. There's quite a few this month, so let's get right to it. Jon Moxley vs. Hangman Page from February 1st, another instance where they get slighted from my video because of another match that happens on that week. The Catch 2-2 vs. Just 4 Guys match from The New Beginning in Sapporo. Take a lot of things I said about the Stardom tag in this video, but just I didn't like it as much. However, Doki and Kanemaru stole the show in this one. Julia vs. Suzu Suzuki from Supreme Fight. This one got criticism for not being like their first match, but I think as a Stardom main event it does its job very well. Zack Sabre Jr. vs. Tomohiro Ishii from The New Beginning. I'm a huge fan of this pairing. I thought it was a great first defense from Zack, and this one is, as with all the TV title matches, available for free on YouTube. El Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr. vs. Manabu Soya for the GHC National title from February 6th in Noah. Didn't have the highest expectations for this one, but it really blew me away, and it's definitely worth your time. MJF vs. Konosuke Takeshita from the February 8th Dynamite. This is just circumstance of them being in that stretch where Dynamite was having 1 to 2 good to great matches per week, so this one got slighted for Danielson and Rush instead. The Max Hart Tournament Final from Tokyo Joshi Pro. I didn't do a great job of keeping up with the tournament as a whole, but I really did enjoy the final. It's probably my favorite match from them so far this year. Shingo Takagi vs. Kazuchika Okada from The New Beginning. All of my criticisms to modern Okada main events applies here. Though I love Shingo's performance in this match, I think he does a great job of getting a lot of aggression out of Okada, and the finishing stretch here is nuts. I would love to see an abbreviated version between the two, maybe in the G1. Eddie Kingston vs. Jay White from Battle in the Valley. It's fitting that the Switchblade character met his end by someone like Eddie Kingston, and the two just beat the crap out of each other. Kento Miyahara versus Yuji Nagata from the February 19th Cork and Hall show. My introduction to modern All Japan, and I did really like the match. Strange though that they didn't leave the belt on Kento for Tokyo Dome. I do recommend checking out the whole Keiji Muto retirement show from Tokyo Dome, especially the All Japan vs. Noah 6-man tag. I did enjoy the main event as well. I thought it over-delivered, and we even got a Masahiro Chono final match at the end. Just a great show overall. Orange Cassidy vs. Wheeler Yuta from the February 22nd Dynamite. Much different from what you would expect from Cassidy, and I'm enjoying Yuta in this heel role. Tekla vs. Saya Iida from February 23rd. This is an undercard singles match on a Stardom house show. The styles make matches, and you have a young powerhouse in Iida versus the erratic and technical Tekla, where she works the hands, arms, and fingers, and it's just a really enjoyable match. Cody Rhodes vs. Chad Gable on Monday Night Raw from February 27th. Really good TV match. It's nice to see a TV match on Raw with a designated start, beginning, and finish. No interferences, no squashes, nothing of the like. One of the best TV matches from WWE in quite a while. And finally, just a couple of matches from the Fantastica Mania tour between New Japan and CMLL. El Desperado, Místico, and Soberano Jr. versus Doki, Hechicero, and Templario. Ultimo Guerrero versus Captain Suicida, and Titan versus Soberano Jr. A fun tour overall, and it was nice to broaden my tastes a little bit with Lucha Libre. And that is it from me. Thank you so much for watching. I know this one was a little bit long-winded with the honorable mentions, but it's a good problem to have when this much good wrestling is going on. Be sure to do all the obligatory YouTube stuff by liking, commenting, and subscribing, and let me know what your favorite match was from the month, especially if it's from a promotion that I didn't mention here. Be sure to also give me a follow on Twitter at OuterStevan. I look forward to doing this all again, in what promises to be an eventful March. See you next time.